At 3:47 Moscow time, September 27, 2025, Ukrainian kamikaze drones were 23 seconds away from striking the Afipsky oil refinery in Russia's Krasnodar region, one of 16 refineries about to burn in Ukraine's most devastating economic warfare campaign. In a nutshell, Ukraine's systematic destruction of Russia's oil infrastructure has disrupted over 1 million barrels per day of refining capacity, forcing diesel exports to their lowest level since 2020 and proving that Russia's security system is incapable of protecting its most vital economic assets. If you were a military strategist, would you approve targeting civilian energy infrastructure knowing it directly funds the enemy's war machine? Drop your answer in the comments, because this campaign is rewriting the rules of economic warfare. Picture Russia's oil empire. 38 refineries pumping the lifeblood of Putin's war machine. The Afipsky refinery alone processes 9.1 million tons of oil annually. That's fuel for tanks, jets, and the entire Russian military apparatus. Every barrel refined becomes rubles for missiles. Every liter of diesel powers another armored vehicle toward the front. Since August 2025, Ukraine has been conducting what industry analyst Benedict George from Argus calls the most effective campaign that Ukraine has carried out so far. This isn't random destruction, it's systematic economic surgery, cutting the arteries that feed Russia's war chest. The numbers are staggering. The CPC terminal and Chernomor Transneft oil transshipment complex together handle over 2 million barrels daily. The Ryazan refinery near Moscow processes 340,000 barrels per day. These facilities don't just fuel Russia's military, they generate the extraordinary profits that keep the entire war effort financially viable. Russia is the world's second largest diesel exporter. Half of those exports go to Turkey, with the rest supplying West and North Africa and Brazil. Every disruption sends ripples through global energy markets, forcing nations to scramble for alternatives. The weapons of choice for this campaign are deceptively simple: Ukrainian kamikaze drones and maritime surface drones. These aren't high-tech military marvels. They're relatively basic unmanned systems that have proven devastatingly effective against billion-dollar infrastructure. The Afipsky refinery has been repeatedly targeted, suggesting Ukraine has developed precise intelligence on its vulnerabilities. Processing 9.1 million tons annually means the facility operates massive distillation columns, catalytic crackers, and storage tanks, all highly flammable, all impossible to armor effectively. When a kamikaze drone strikes an oil facility, the initial explosion is just the beginning. Refined petroleum products burn at temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius. Storage tanks can experience boiling liquid expanding vapor explosions, BLEVES, creating fireballs visible for kilometers. Fire suppression systems, even when functional, struggle against petroleum fires that can burn for days. The simultaneous nature of these attacks reveals sophisticated coordination. On one Wednesday morning, Ukraine launched what officials called the largest drone attack in recent memory on the Black Sea coast. Multiple locations were hit within minutes of each other: Novorossiysk, Sochi, Tuapse, overwhelming emergency response capabilities. At 22:30 on September 26th, somewhere in Ukraine, operators initiated the launch sequence for the first wave of kamikaze drones. These drones would fly for approximately 4 hours through the darkness, navigating by GPS and inertial guidance, Sorintinki and Horinazimauts, avoiding populated areas and known air defense positions. By 1:15 on September 27th, the drones had crossed into Russian airspace, flying at varying altitudes between 50 and 200 meters to avoid radar detection. Each drone followed a slightly different route, ensuring that even if one was detected and intercepted, the others would continue toward their targets. Meanwhile, at 2 o'clock, maritime surface drones were launched from concealed positions along Ukraine's Black Sea coast. These naval drones, essentially remote-controlled boats packed with explosives, began their approach toward Tuapse harbor. They skimmed just above the water at 40 knots, nearly invisible to radar. too small for most defensive systems to engage effectively. The coordination required for these simultaneous strikes is remarkable. Multiple launch sites, different types of drones, various targets, all had to be synchronized to hit within the same narrow time window. This prevents Russian forces from shifting defensive assets between locations and maximizes the psychological impact. At 3:30, Russian radar operators in Krasnodar detected the first anomalies, small, fast-moving objects approaching from the west. But by the time they could classify these contacts as hostile drones, it was already too late. The attacking swarm had split into multiple groups, each heading for different targets. At 3:42, Russian air defense systems around the Afipsky refinery were activated. S-300 and Pantsir systems began tracking the incoming threats. But here's where Ukraine's tactical evolution shows. By using multiple cheap drones instead of expensive missiles, they've created an impossible mathematical problem for defenders. Russian authorities claim their air defense systems shot down the attacking drones at 3:45. But there's a telling detail in their own statements. The debris from these intercepted drones fell on plant territory and started fires. That's not a successful interception. That's the drones achieving their mission with extra steps. This represents a fundamental failure of Russian air defense doctrine. Their systems were designed to stop NATO fighters and cruise missiles, not swarms of cheap drones. It's like using a sledgehammer to swat mosquitoes. Theoretically possible, practically useless, and exhaustingly expensive. At 4:15, the morning attack on the Black Sea coast created multiple crisis points simultaneously. In Novorossiysk, the first explosions killed 2 people and injured 7. The CPC office took a direct hit at 4:18. In Sochi, at 4:22, authorities began evacuating vacationers from beaches. Imagine explaining to tourists that their Black Sea holiday is canceled due to drone strikes. The Russian response followed predictable patterns. At 4:25, the CPC terminal halted operations as per standard procedure during air raid. 2 minutes later, at 4:27, the Chernomor Transneft complex suspended loading. These automatic shutdowns are designed to prevent catastrophic damage, but they also mean that even unsuccessful attacks can disrupt operations for hours or days. At exactly 3:48 on September the 27th, the first kamikaze drone struck the Afipsky refinery. The explosion occurred at storage tank number 7, containing approximately 10,000 tons of diesel fuel. The fireball rose 200 meters into the pre-dawn sky, visible from 30 kilometers away. Within 90 seconds, at 3:49:30, secondary explosions began as the fire spread through interconnected pipelines. The facility that supplies fuel to the Russian army was burning. The 9.1 million tons of annual processing capacity was going offline in real time. Simultaneously, at 4:20, the surface drones reached Tuapse port. The lead drone detonated against the main loading pier, sending a shockwave through the harbor that shattered windows 2 kilometers inland. Maritime infrastructure is particularly vulnerable. You can't armor a loading terminal, can't hide massive storage tanks, can't quickly repair damaged pipelines that run underwater. At 4:31, emergency services reported that the fire at Afipsky had spread to 3 additional storage tanks. The heat was so intense that firefighters couldn't approach within 500 meters. Foam suppression systems, designed for small fires, were overwhelmed by the inferno, consuming millions of liters of petroleum products. The psychological impact was immediate. At 4:35, Sochi's emergency alert system activated, sending warnings to every mobile phone in the city. Putin's favorite resort city was under attack. The war that was supposed to be far away in Ukraine was suddenly very present on Russia's premier tourist coastline. By 5 a.m. on Wednesday morning, the full scale of the coordinated assault became clear. This wasn't just another drone strike. It was the largest attack in recent memory on the Black Sea coast. Multiple cities hit, critical infrastructure burning, civilians killed and injured. At 5:15, satellite imagery revealed the extent of the damage. The Afipsky refinery had 5 major fires burning simultaneously. Black smoke plumes extended 50 kilometers downwind. Heat signatures showed temperatures exceeding 1,200 degrees Celsius at the fire's core, hot enough to melt aluminum, hot enough to warp steel support structures. The numbers tell the story of systematic destruction. Since August 1st, 16 of Russia's 38 refineries have been hit. The timeline is relentless. August 5th, Ryazan refinery struck. August 12th, Tuapse facility damaged. August 19th, 2 refineries hit simultaneously. August 27th, Ryazan hit again. Some facilities have been struck multiple times, suggesting Ukraine returns to finish what they started. At 6 a.m., Russian energy officials convened an emergency meeting. The immediate impact was measurable. Over 2 million barrels per day of handling capacity at the Black Sea terminals was suspended. The Afipsky refinery's 9.1 million tons annual capacity was offline indefinitely. Diesel exports were plummeting to their lowest monthly total since 2020. But the strategic impact was even greater. Russia's security system had proven incapable of protecting key oil hubs. The world's second-largest diesel exporter couldn't defend its own export terminals. The country that sells advanced air defense systems globally couldn't stop relatively simple drones from repeatedly hitting the same targets. By 8 a.m. on September 27th, the fires at Afipsky were still burning out of control. Emergency services reported they would need at least 72 hours to contain the blaze, and weeks to fully extinguish it. Every hour meant millions of rubles in damage and lost production. The September 2025 diesel export figures revealed the campaign's effectiveness, exports falling to the lowest level in 5 years. For a country dependent on energy revenues to fund its war, this is catastrophic. The market response was immediate and severe. By 9 o'clock Moscow time, diesel premiums had risen to $25 to $30 per barrel over Brent crude, the highest level since summer when Israel-Iran tensions peaked. Every dollar increase in premium means billions in additional costs for importing nations and billions in lost revenue for Russia. Turkey, receiving half of Russia's diesel exports, was forced to turn to India and Saudi Arabia for replacement supplies. West and North African nations scrambled to secure alternative sources. Brazil reconsidered its energy partnerships. The global diesel supply chain, carefully balanced over decades, was reorganizing in real time. Russia's domestic response revealed the strain. Despite imposing gasoline export bans for most of 2025 to preserve domestic supply, diesel sales remained unrestricted. They need the revenue too desperately. But with refineries burning and export terminals under attack, even unrestricted sales mean nothing if you can't produce and ship the product. Benedict George from Argus provided the most telling analysis. It seems to be the most effective campaign that Ukraine has carried out so far. When industry analysts use superlatives, pay attention. This isn't just military success. It's economic warfare achieving strategic objectives. The repeated strikes on facilities like Afipsky reveal a deeper problem for Russia. These refineries can't simply be repaired overnight. Modern refining equipment requires specialized components, many produced only in Western nations that now embargo Russia. A damaged catalytic cracker might take months to replace. A destroyed distillation column could be offline for a year. More than 1 million barrels per day of refining capacity has been disrupted. That's not just a number. It's millions of tons of fuel not produced, billions of rubles not earned, thousands of military vehicles potentially immobilized. Every barrel of capacity lost is a permanent reduction in Russia's warfighting capability until repairs are complete. The infrastructure vulnerability extends beyond just refineries. The CPC terminal plays a vital role in Russia's energy exports, handling both Russian and Kazakh oil. When it shuts down, even temporarily, it affects multiple nations' energy supplies and damages Russia's reputation as a reliable supplier. At 10 o'clock on September 27th, Kazakhstan's energy minister called an emergency meeting to discuss alternative export routes. signaling lost confidence in Russian infrastructure security. When your partners start looking for alternatives, you've already lost more than just facilities. You've lost trust. What Ukraine has achieved is a masterclass in asymmetric economic warfare. They've proven that you don't need strategic bombers or cruise missiles to cripple an enemy's economy. Cheap drones, precise intelligence, and coordinated strikes can achieve what traditional military forces cannot. The cost equation is devastating for Russia. A kamikaze drone might cost $10,000. A refinery costs billions. Even if Russia intercepts 9 out of 10 drones, the 10th one pays for the entire operation 1,000 times over. It's not sustainable for the defender. It's barely an expense for the attacker. This campaign has also exposed the brittleness of Russia's energy infrastructure. Decades of corruption and underinvestment have left facilities vulnerable. Safety systems are outdated. Emergency response is inadequate. When Ukrainian drones arrive, they find targets that are essentially undefended despite claims of sophisticated protection. The psychological warfare component is equally effective. Every Russian working in the energy sector now knows they could be next. Every regional governor must explain why they can't protect critical infrastructure. Every citizen sees that the war they were told was far away is now burning in their backyard. The disruption to global diesel markets extends far beyond Russia's borders. With exports at their lowest since 2020, every importing nation faces higher costs and potential shortages. The $25 to $30 premium over Brent crude translates to higher transportation costs, increased inflation, and economic strain worldwide. Turkey's shift to Indian and Saudi suppliers reveals how quickly energy partnerships can change. Decades-old supply relationships evaporate when reliability disappears. Once customers find alternative suppliers, they rarely return, especially when the original supplier is under constant attack. For military planners worldwide, Ukraine's campaign offers crucial lessons. Traditional air defense systems designed for conventional threats are nearly useless against drone swarms. The economics of defense have shifted. You can't afford to defend everything when attacks cost so little. Ukraine has achieved something remarkable. They've made Russia's vast territory a liability rather than an asset. With 38 refineries spread across the world's largest country, Russia can't possibly defend them all. Every facility becomes a potential target, every pipeline a vulnerability. The quote that Russia's security system has proven incapable of protecting key oil hubs isn't just embarrassing, it's an admission of systemic failure. The same nation that claims military superiority can't stop drones from repeatedly hitting the same targets. The pattern is established, the vulnerability confirmed, the weakness exposed. As diesel exports plummet and refineries burn, Russia faces a cascading crisis. Less refined fuel means less military mobility. Reduced exports mean less revenue. Less revenue means fewer weapons purchased, fewer soldiers paid, less war capability sustained. It's economic death by 1,000 drone strikes. The 16 refineries hit since August represent 42% of Russia's total refining infrastructure. If this rate continues, within months, Russia could lose the majority of its refining capacity. That's not just economic damage. It's the systematic dismantling of Russia's ability to wage mechanized warfare. So here's the question. If you were a Russian energy security chief, how would you protect 38 refineries spread across 17 million square kilometers from coordinated drone swarms that cost less than the missiles needed to stop them? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'll pin the most valuable answer. Subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated on how Ukraine is rewriting the rules of economic warfare. Modern warfare is no longer about massive armies. It's about precision economics.